And it's always interesting to wonder because like Micah got the best score of all. But what score did he get? Did he get 16 right on the individual? Did he get 7, 20? I always wonder.
I'd be surprised if I got 2.
No, you did a lot better than that. That was not that terrible hard. I think you did a lot better than that. All right, so we're up to lesson 77. Is that what you have out there in Shelby? And then should be opened up to Judges chapter. Oops, I'm in Joshua 17. I need Judges chapter 17 and 18. It's just real sad. The next 2 lessons, just it kind of really gets into some of the filth and wickedness of the people that were living in the land. A lot of times we see the world around us, and I guess I kind of there's things that just aren't surprising to us anymore when we hear them on the news. They're shocking. That's the running of the horses of Revelation. The sin of the world is abounding more and more, and it almost would seem like the same thing here. And we always, I would say, be careful. When, I'm trying to think of the right way, a good way to say this. When you say something or accuse somebody of one thing, okay, or say it's not good, but then you yourself believe, trust, or love those types of things, what does a person call you? What do we call that kind of person? When you might tell somebody else what they're doing or saying is bad, but then you yourself, maybe you don't participate in them, but you support them. Jennifer? We say it's hypocritical. So that's one thing we always need to be careful about is it's very easy if we look at, now it's a totally different time in history, and it's a totally different period. However, there's some pretty horrible things that go on in the Bible. And then Joe, when he goes home tonight and he hears about a Muslim guy beheading a Christian, what do you think about that, Joe? Pretty horrible. But then we go to the Bible and there's beheading in there of the enemy, right? So it's not so much maybe the actions, although they are wrong and they are wicked, what we need, because one was done for the purpose of God. God commanded the people to do those things sometimes. But what we need to be careful about is make sure we're focusing on the doctrine. What is wrong with the doctrine of the Muslims? Well, they say that Allah is God. Well, that's false. Okay? They say you have to go to Mecca. That's false. So make sure that we focus on the doctrine. Sometimes it's easier to pick on and say, well, those guys believe and their Bible talks about all kinds of horrible things. Well, so does our Bible. It talks about, and we'll see that in the next couple of days here, just how wicked and sinful the people were. And Judges chapter 17 and 18. Okay, we'll get started here. Mike and the Danites, which is lesson 77. Okay, so again, like I said, we jumped from Judges 1 and 2 to way over here in 17 and 18. Okay, it's because we want to try to take it in chronological order. Okay, so we will do that, and then we'll jump back to chapter 3 of Judges. But very quickly, we can assume after Joshua's death, the people began to fall into that idol worship. They saw their neighbors. They liked what their neighbors were doing. They saw the parties they were having. Some of them probably married many wicked and heathen wives. Now, there was no king or ruler. They lost that, so that's a big loss to get used to not having one guy in charge and overlooking you, but that's not an excuse. And that's why I think I asked that question. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. That's a major thing that we need to be cautious of. Micah, can you get the door back over there quick? That's something we need to be cautious of. I want to do what I want to do. I don't care if mom or dad says I shouldn't do it. I'm going to do it anyways. I don't care if the school rules say I can't do that. I'm going to do it anyways. I don't care that the place I went to has a sign over there with the rule posted, don't do this on it. I'm going to do it anyways because I'm more important than everyone else, or those rules don't apply to me. I can do it safely or in a responsible way, whereas others can't. So before we jump to judging and looking at the Israelites, say, boy, what wicked people. I know that I'm tempted, and I do say that from time to time, just as I'm pretty positive all of you have those same thoughts and do those things from time to time, where we say, I can do what's right in my own eyes. I don't need to listen to these rules. The guidelines that God gives me in the Bible, bah, humbug. I can do them and still love God. No, you can't. And that's what the people need to learn here. They're doing whatever they feel like doing. My next door neighbor is having a party and he's got this idol. I can go over there. I can handle it. I can go get drunk and still be a Christian and do all those heinous things. And then I'll come back tomorrow and I'll live my Christian life. But the other guy can't. My other neighbor over there, he can't handle those parties. He's always getting in trouble, so he shouldn't go. But I can handle it. That's exactly what the Israelites are saying here. Before we jump to conclude and judge them, nothing wrong with pointing out their sins and saying they're wrong. But before we do that from a perspective that I would never do that, or I am so much better than that, that's where we need to be cautious and be careful of pointing out those sins without first taking that beam out of our own eye. So, Judges chapter 17, verse 1. And there was a man of Mount Ephraim whose name was Micah. Not you, Micah. And he said unto his mother, the 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from thee, about which thou cursedst and spakest of also in mine ears, behold, the silver is with me. I took it. And his mother said, blessed be thou of the Lord, my son. And when he had restored the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother said, I had wholly dedicated the silver unto the Lord from my hand for my son, to make a graven image and a molten image. Now therefore I will restore it unto thee. Yet he restored the money unto his mother, and his mother took 200 shekels of silver and gave them to the founder, who made thereof a graven image and a molten image, and they were in the house of Micah. And the man Micah had an house of gods, and made an ephod and teraphim, and consecrated one of his sons, who became his priest. In those days there was no king in Israel, but every man did that which was right in his own sight. We don't read about Micah's father here. Was he dead? Was he gone? Or was he an ungodly man? We don't know. But his mother is in charge of the home here, apparently, because she is taking care of the money. And his family must have been a wealthy family, for he had stolen 1,100 or 1,100 shekels of silver. That was a lot of money. He had stolen that from his mother. His mother had looked high and low and everywhere for that money. She called down a curse on the thief. Whoever took that money, may they be cursed. Little did she know it was her son who had taken it. The curse made Micah afraid, and he admitted, Mom, I stole it. I took the 1,100. And your mother or father, I hope, would immediately, I'm glad that you told me that, but now we're going to talk about stealing and how wrong and sinful it is. And we're also going to talk about what your punishment is going to be. And I pray that you are sorrowful for your sins and ask for forgiveness of God and you repent of them. That's what your mom and dad should say. That's not what the mother of Micah says here. No, she blessed him and said, oh, thanks be to God that you return these shekels. So, what was she going to do with those 1,100 shekels? I will give them to the Lord. I will make graven images. Let these shekels be melted down and make a molten image of something and shaped in the likeness of a god. So Micah gave them back to his mother. His mother took some of them and gave them to a silversmith who made idols for her. And then we read that Micah also probably had a spot in the house where he would go, where he had other idols. He had set up a shrine in his house. Take a small room in your house, empty it out in your mind. And in there, one could set up incense and sweet-smelling salts and oils and water and whatever else. And there could be graven images and pictures on the wall of all these gods. That's the type of place I can imagine that Micah had here. And he needed to pay for all those things. Perfumes were expensive. Oils were too. So to keep this up, that's what the rest of the money we understand was used for. Micah and his mother paid for the upkeep of his house. In fact, we see Micah had made one of his sons a priest. It was his son's job. He paid his son to take care of that room, to make sure the gods were happy and prayed to. And that's why that verse 6 has to end that way with those sad words. But every man did that which was right in his own eyes. They are all doing whatever they think is good. Now we have to jump to another person. So we're going to leave Micah, and we're going to go to a Levite here in verse 7. Follow along there. There was a young man out of Bethlehem, Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite, and he sojourned there. And the man departed out of the city from Bethlehem, Judah, to sojourn, which means to travel, where he could find a place. And he came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, as he journeyed. And Micah said unto him, Whence comest thou? And he said unto him, I am a Levite of Bethlehem, Judah, and I go to sojourn where I may find a place. And Micah said unto him, Dwell with me, and be unto me a father and a priest, and I will give thee 10 shekels of silver by the year, and a suit of apparel, and thy victuals. So the Levite went in. And the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man was unto him as one of his sons. And Micah consecrated the Levite, and the young man became his priest, and was in the house of Micah. Then said Micah, Now know I that the Lord will do me good, seeing I have a Levite to my priest. What a sad state Israel's fallen into. When you say, if I say to you, a man is coming in here this afternoon, and he's a minister in our Protestant Reformed churches, and you've never met him, I hope you have in your mind already some qualities about that man. Not only is he probably a decent speaker, not only is he probably friendly, but he's godly. He will teach us and direct us to God. He's a holy man. That's what the people in the Bible times should have thought about a Levite. Oh, you are a Levite. If Micah heard that a Levite, well, let's think about that. Let's go back to your house. Remember that room that I had you mentally clear out? And you sinfully set up all kinds of wicked idols in there? Now imagine a minister knocks on your door. Oh, yes, hi, I'm Reverend so-and-so. Well, come on in. But immediately, what's the one place you don't want him to go? What are you concerned about, maybe embarrassed about, afraid of him seeing? Your room that's set up to an idol god. When Micah finds out that this man who is traveling past his home is a Levite, you can imagine, you should think that Micah would say, well, go on your way. I don't want this Levite, this man of God, to see my special room set up to idols. But that's not what Micah does here. He knows, must be able to see somehow that this Levite is not a God-fearing young man, an obedient one, but one who is into trouble or is easily persuaded or will do anything for a buck. the town that he was from, was not one of the towns that he should have been living in. Remember, God gave 48 towns to Levites? Bethlehem, Judah was not one of them. Well, when Micah finds out that this man is a Levite, he thinks, even better than my son being a priest. Here's a man who's trained to speak to God. This man can come in, he can take care of my idols and make them happy, and if he prays to God, surely the Lord will bless me then. So now he has a real priest, he believes, at his door. So he invites this Levite in. Treats the Levite with respect. I'll pay you this amount of silver a year. I will give you a suit of apparel, a nice piece of clothing, which, remember, to have more than one or two sets of clothing in those days was probably pretty rare. So to get a new one every year, that's a pretty big thing. And to have all your victuals paid for, your food and drink. Well, this doesn't get much better for this Levite. So he says, yes. Yes, I will do the work. I will stay here in the house with you, and I will take care of your idols and help to make sure that God is pleased. That's wickedness. It's sin. So let's go on to chapter 18 and see what becomes of all of it. Verses 1 through 6. In those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of the Danites sought them an inheritance to dwell in. For unto that day all their inheritance had not fallen unto them among the tribes of Israel. They didn't think they had enough room, and probably, on top of that, they probably weren't happy with the area of land God had given them. They wanted a different part of the land of Canaan. Verse 2, and the children of Dan sent of their family 5 men from their coasts, men of valor, from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to search it. And they said unto them, go, search the land. Who, when they came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, they lodged there. And when they were by the house of Micah, they knew the voice of the young man, the Levite, and they turned in thither and said unto him, who brought thee hither, and what markest thou in this place, and what hast thou here? And he said unto them, thus and thus dealeth Micah with me, and hath hired me, and I am his priest. And they said unto him, ask counsel, we pray thee, of God, that we may know whether our way which we shall go shall be prosperous. And the priest said unto them, go in peace, before the Lord is your way wherein ye go. These men of Dan were like the rest of the people of Israel. When they got to their land, they weren't to just settle in and relax and kick back and do anything. No, they were to be active and continuing to kick out and get the Canaanites out of the land, but they were probably lazy like the others. Didn't fight and clear out the land as they should, so that the land that they actually had was not as advantageous to them. They want other lands. So they send some men to spy out some new land for them. Where else could we live? And these men, as they go, they came to the house of Micah. And it says they recognized him by his voice. Now, this is probably not somebody they know personally, but if you were to meet a man from Texas, you could probably know where he's from by his voice. Or if you were to meet a man from Boston, Massachusetts, you could recognize him by his voice, the way he talked. So they heard this Levite speaking in the house, and they knew immediately, this man is not of this region, he's from somewhere else. And they inquire of him who he is and what he's doing there. And he tells them, well, I'm here, I'm taking care of the house of Micah, I am a priest. Well, if you're a priest who can do all these things, why don't you tell us what's our future going to be? If we continue on, are we going to find any good land? Is it going to be a good thing for us? And the priest says, well, yes, your future looks good. Well, that encourages them. Continuing on, then the 5 men departed and came to Laish, and saw that the people were there, and how they dwelt careless after the manner of Zidonians, quiet and secure, and there was no magistrate in the land that might put them to shame in anything. And they were far from the Zidonians, and had no business with any man. And they came unto their brethren at Zorah and Eshtaol, and their brethren said unto them, what say ye? And they said, arise, that we may go up against them. For we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. And are ye still? Be not slothful to go and enter to possess the land. When ye go, ye shall come unto a people secure, into a large land, for God hath given it into your hands, a place where there is no want of anything that is in the earth. So they go back home, they give a good report. But then we read they took about 600 men, 600 soldiers, and they head out again to go to this land. And once more along the way, what do? Who do they stop at? Well, last time we stopped at the house of Micah and we got that good encouraging word. Let's stop there again, this time with the 600 men. But that's not exactly what happened. Look at verse 14. Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish, and said unto their brethren, Do ye know that there is in these houses an ephod, and teraphim, and a graven image, and a molten image? Now consider, therefore, what ye have to do. And they turned thitherward, and came to the house of the young man, the Levite, even unto the house of Micah, and saluted him. And the 600 men appointed with their weapons of war, which were the children of Dan, stood by the entering of the gate. And the 5 men that went out to spy the land went up and came thither, and took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. And the priest stood in the entering of the gate with the 600 men that were appointed with weapons of war. So they went into his house, and they stole those images. They took those images with them. And when the priest, obviously this Levite, what are you doing? Well, why don't you come with us? Why don't you be a priest for the whole tribe of Dan instead of just the house of Micah? Well, this priest is probably one who thinks of himself. Well, that sounds good. Here I'm a priest of one man's house. Now I can be the priest of a whole nation? That, my friends, is a move up in the world. That, my friends, will probably increase my prosperity, wealth, and fame. I will do that. Micah was unhappy with that, obviously. He did not want to lose his gods, nor his Levite. But that's what happened. He couldn't do anything. He couldn't stop these 600 men. And so these Danites, they go on their way with Micah's idols and with his priest. They capture a town called Laish there, and that's what they eventually call Dan. Tribe of Dan. They relocated. They found a different place because they were unhappy with the land that God had originally given them, which was wicked and sinful. They didn't clear out that land as God had commanded them, which was sinful. And now they've established their own city, they think, which is sinful. So that's why we have to go back to that verse that we read. But every man did that which was right in his own eyes. This sounds wicked and sinful. Our next lesson will show just how much further and deeper into sin they go.